Hey guys, welcome back to Mental Game Live. I'm Dr. Bhrett McCabe. I'm here with you with my man Brett Basham. Call him Bash because he used to mash when he played baseball. But anyway, we're here tonight. We're excited to be here. Got a great thing. Home Run Derby's going on right now. Somebody just on Instagram just let me know about that. So I'm also on Instagram Live. If you're on Instagram Live and you have a question tonight that I can answer your anxiety, let's hit me up over on my YouTube channel. That's where we get it after, and that's where we go. So if you have a question tonight that we can dive into your anxiety, help you in the way you play, the way you perform, or the way you live, please leave a question. We're going to get to questions at some point, but tonight's all about Mental Game Live. Bash, all right. Name another group, name another show that had the number one pick in the draft and the baddest softball pitcher on the planet, Montana Felts, live last week for an hour talking about mental game. I mean, come on. Who are we
Not
getting?
a single one. Not a single one. Other than this one. Other than this one. Yeah, pretty cool to see him get number one overall. Coincidental, especially just mere days after coming
isn't that crazy? I mean, wasn't that weird? I mean, that was surreal, wasn't it? I mean,
it was pretty cool. I mean, you had a feeling. It was either him or Cruz, his teammate that was going to go.
Where'd they go?
First overall.
Where'd they go to school?
Louisiana State, I believe.
So
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to speak as an alum for a minute. Number one pick in baseball, Ben McDonald. Number one pick in football, Jamarcus Russell. Number one pick in football, Joe Burrow. Number one pick in women's basketball, Simone Augustus. Number one pick in men's basketball. Who else? The Shaq Diesel. Shaquille O'Neal. 2 first-round picks, number one picks overall in softball, 2 pitchers. And then also Billy Cannon. Come on. Oh, yeah, and they also released something that was very interesting this week. School with the most national titles in the SEC.
Is LSU?
Why you say that so surprised?
I don't believe it.
Now, my work at Bama, we're going to be building some more. So all my LSU friends back home, sorry, got roll tide, okay?
I don't know if is that right. There's no way that's right. LSU, like all time?
Women's track, men's track.
I don't believe it. I'm going to need to see.
7 from baseball. Just remember that. To all the Arkansas Razorback haters out there who are hitting LSU baseball, catch a foul ball one time and you win a national title. Sorry, that's how it is. So,
also, right? LSU does not have the most national titles in baseball? No,
they do not.
Nope. It's not.
Nope, USC does. USC played in a different era, though. Oh, yeah. Ben Simmons, also first overall pick in men's basketball.
Doesn't count.
Okay, but let's look at the SEC real quick. Bryce Young, number one pick in football this year. Okay, Brandon Miller, number 2 pick overall in the NBA draft. It's a place to be if you want to be. Right? Come on. SEC.
Maybe it's just you, dude. Maybe it's just you. Everything you touch pretty much turns to gold.
I don't know, but I was blown away by last week. I don't know. I mean, just to listen to the preparation. We put out a piece today on Instagram about how often do you have your number one stuff? 5 times out of 19. That's a quarter percent of the time, 25% of the time. Coaches and parents, stop telling kids that they have to be great and perfect all the time. Teach them how to be great with what they have all the time. That's a big difference, right? When you're training and coaching, stop using perfection as a standard. Stop. Tiger Woods is not the standard. Serena Williams is not the standard. They're not. The standard are the people who fight to overcome. Excited for my buddy. He's not a client, but a buddy, Sepp Straka, winning the John Deere. That was awesome. He won an absolute heater on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And what did he do?
Birmingham guy?
Birmingham guy. Plays out at Greystone Golf Country Club in Shoal Creek. Yep. Right. So
I did not see what he did.
So he went on an absolute heater on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but he was coming down the stretch. He hooked it in the water on 18 to make a double and still won. Parents, my point, we have unrealistic standards in today's game, y'all. Stop it. Stop shitting on your kids. Build them up. When they struggle, support them. When they win, tell them what they can do better. Stop shitting on your kids. Build them up. Coaches, stop shitting on your players. Help them, build them, develop them. Don't push them down. This game is hard enough without having to be perfect. That's why we're going to talk about anxiety tonight. What's good for you?
Love it.
Look at you rocking that USA jersey in the background tonight.
I did a little redecorating in the studio here.
I love it.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't claim to be a huge part of that squad. I just happy to be along for the ride that year.
Oh heck yeah! Anytime you get
half the team, half the team probably in the big leagues right now. So
who was the best one you saw?
Serving up absolute BP bombs. Schwarber or Bregman.
You weren't a pitcher, so that's okay.
Right.
Okay. So who would you say? Who was the first one?
Kyle Schwarber.
Okay.
And Bregman. Never seen
Schwarber.
I don't know why I think power.
I don't know why I think Schwarber's like 42.
He's I'd say pushing. He's close to 30, but still he looks older. But the dude, just phenomenal dudes on that team. But also we played in Durham, North Carolina, at the Durham Bulls Athletic Park, and there's like a office building out in center field, like right behind, and they were just. I mean, it's probably just to the left center side of dead straightaway center field, and they were just absolutely peppering that building. Probably 425, 430, something like that.
It became a game for them.
Yeah, it's so stupid. It's so stupid.
So let me ask you this: since you were around those guys in baseball, what when you saw special, what did you see that was so special?
Just the ease at which the game came to them.
High
level.
How do you coach that?
How do you coach it?
Yeah. Or how did you see it? Because I'll tell you the same thing we saw with Brandon Miller this year at Alabama basketball. The way he moved around the court, he went into space so freely. He was always one step ahead of where the ball was going to go. Rebounds, he was always seemed to be in that spot. He just seemed to be playing at a speed half second faster.
Yeah, high level baseball IQ. It's just how they talk, how they converse with each other, and coaching staff. Like just their ability. For instance, I always admired guys that had just unbelievable discipline of the strike zone because I didn't. Just they could sit there in BP and take balls that were, a ball off the plate. And they would sit there and just spit on it, and they would take it. It's not a strike. Just little things like that, and just their ability to kind of what Paul and Montana were talking about last week, just staying within themselves and not trying to do too much. Just kind of sticking with the plan, sticking with what they do well, and the best of the best, just an unbelievably talented group of guys.
And I think that's the cool thing to watch from last week. So if you haven't watched, go back and watch that on archives. Every show we ever do on Mental Game Live is housed on our YouTube channel. If you're watching on Instagram, you can watch them all there. Or follow us on social. We're going to keep hitting it. We're going to take your questions tonight, just like we did last week. The thing that I thought was great about Paul and Montana was they talked about their routines and their processes to get ready and their mindset about what it took. I thought that was fantastic. And Montana's over in Ireland right now playing for Team USA softball. And Paul's obviously probably in Pittsburgh being the number one pick in the draft. So congrats to those two. Honored to be there. We got some great guests coming up too, y'all. I wish I could share on a couple I've been talking to. And people want to do it. They're excited to talk about the mental game and really in an open and vulnerable way. So we're going to continue to have more and more guests on. But tonight I wanted to talk about anxiety. And I didn't want to have a guest on tonight because I wanted to talk to you as somebody who has anxiety. And we've talked about anxiety before, Bash. It's nothing new for us. But
both guys, anxiety.
Both guys. Yeah, I mean, we got the A, don't we? Let me say this, Bash. Yeah, let me say this. I would say that probably 50 to 60% of the people who come see me, whether it's in clinical settings at University of Alabama, whether it's my private clients, it's the people that I see, 50 to 60% of them in today's referrals are coming to me with anxiety. And it used to be that anxiety we would see as kind of like a crack in the armor. And now what I see is people are coming in with anxiety and they're like, my God, I can't believe I have the feels that I have. My body feels amped up all the time. I'm stressed. I'm worried. I can't shut off my mind. It's like I can't shut down. It's like my engines are revving all the time.
All the time.
And you got it. I got it. We live it. It's not a bad thing, y'all. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I'm going to ask you, Bash, and if you don't mind disclosing, I mean, what's your experience with anxiety? Like, what do you feel? What's the running? You don't have to give me the themes of your thoughts, but what do you feel?
The biggest thing I feel, as always, I can tell because my chest starts getting tight and it's hard to breathe. That's how I first noticed, or I first, I guess, identified that something was wrong, and it wasn't really just nerves. It almost feels like someone is sitting on my chest all the time, and it's, I struggle to like get a deep breath, and and it feels like kind of the walls are closing in, so to speak. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a trigger. Sometimes it just comes on. I'm like, I have no idea how I got to this spot, but I'm here, and I'm going to deal with it. So that's probably the main one that I experience, probably on a daily basis.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about mine, but can you identify sometimes the trigger that's there, or the thing that sparked it, or do you have the sensation first and you can't put the block in the slot?
The latter. I mean, I can identify triggers very, very few times, but like most of the time, it just literally, I feel like it comes out of nowhere.
So the thing I want you guys to understand about anxiety before we get into kind of what to do about it is you have to understand that anxiety it's in every one of us. And I know there are people out there who go, yeah, I don't have anxiety. Yours manifests differently. It may be organization, it may be structure, it may be perfectionism, but anxiety as its nature is a core sense to who we are as humans. You have to understand where it comes from. Your negative thoughts are not wrong. They're not lies. They're not saying that you're maladaptive or anything like that. That they are a reflection of increased arousal in our body. Now, here's the thing, okay? We get arousal. Our body gets energy. Let's think of arousal like energy. Our energy rises because our mind is constantly scanning our internal and external environments, trying to identify what? Risk, threat, challenge, opposition. But we don't live in an environment, really. I hope not all of us, but we don't live in an environment where threat is a regular thing. But our brains are so optimized for it because that's the way we stay alive. Our brain's primary goal is to keep us alive long enough so that we can continue to have relationships and growth and development. In other words, survival of the fittest, the strongest genes survive. So our brain is conditioned over tens of thousands of years of us being human species to be optimized. Now, we're not worried about bears jumping out of the woods to get us unless you live in certain parts of the world. We're not worried about other things. But the biggest threat that we have is the potential of what if. Uncertainty is the greatest threat the human mind has. Because you get increased arousal to meet that uncertainty does not mean that you're flawed. That does not mean that you're weak. That does not mean that your thoughts are bad. They're not from the other side. They're nothing wrong. They're just thought balloons being sent out by the radar system in your brain, right? And it's funny how that works. Our mind is constantly scanning the environment. Well, if you think about our ability to function and succeed, if you think about our ability to connect to other human beings and the value that our social connections have with other people, are we being liked, appreciated, valued, judged, all those other things? Those are all thought processes to make sure people like us. Like me coming on a live stream, hoping that people resonate with what I'm saying. Because the worst thing is somebody saying, yeah, I didn't get it. Because I worry about people I don't even know whether or not they like it. And so for me, my underlying anxiety is, am I doing right? Am I doing good? Am I being of service to people? Okay. And so as a result, my mind is always scanning. And I would love to be in an environment where I was calm. I'd love to be in an environment where I had nothing to lose. That's not realistic. And it drives me nuts when I hear authors and speakers speak to get calm or never have to do it or live in freedom your whole life and be free. And
it's the worst.
That's not realistic. It's what?
It's the worst. What is a calm? What does a calm what does calm feel like? Like, what is
I
that?
don't want to be calm.
I legitimately, I say that in jest, but like,
I know.
I legitimately want to know what that feels like.
I don't disagree, because even if I'm sitting at the beach, I'm worried about other stuff. Why? My head is running. I'm thinking in the future. The problem with anxiety is it lives in the future. You know why, Bash? Because you can't resolve it. You
Correct.
can't answer it. Okay, you have to sit in the storm. Somebody just said on Instagram, you gotta work through the storm 100%. And the most powerful thing, which we're going to talk about, is I learned how to see anxiety differently. I had my first panic attack when I was in grad school, sitting on an airplane. I talk about it in my upcoming book, Kick Anxiety's Ass. Yes, that's the name of it. I'm a little anxious about the name of it, but we're going to kick its ass. I hope it's okay for you guys. Okay, it's coming. I promise, Tom. It's coming. I know Tom hits me up every week. When's that coming?
Pull up your big boy pants to read this one.
Yes, we're going to kick anxiety's ass on this one. The reason for it is I'm tired of villainizing anxiety. So when people come to see me, usually my first session is about destigmatizing anxiety. It's about pulling it back together. It's about seeing the process that we have as adaptive and not villainizing it. I can't stand when we villainize anxiety. And as coaches, when people say, well, they're anxious, of course the player's anxious. Of course. And how they manifest it many times is wonderful. And anxiety is like a great fire. You light the fire and sometimes you get too close and you burn yourself. That's what we deal with anxiety, because I know you, Bash, that anxiety drives you to be creative, to develop good things, and to sit and give effort to it. My anxiety makes me sit and think and obsess about the players I'm working with, wanting to make sure we're the best. Why? Because it's the future. Okay. I saw a question pop up. We're going to talk about pre-round anxiety and performance anxiety. And we're going to go through all these things about what anxiety is. But I want you to know, as I say this, anxiety is not the villain. It's not a series of lies. It's none of that stuff. You know what it is? It's potential. So I want you to think about it like this. How many of you have watched a scary movie out there? And if you watch a scary movie, they use all kinds of things. They use all kinds of cues, lighting. But one of the biggest ones that they use is they use music and the sound. And if you remember the old cult classic back in late 1970s, there was one called Jaws, right? And it was dun, dun. And Bash, you're too young, but as I was sitting on the back of a car in a drive-in watching Jaws when I wasn't allowed to, you wouldn't get in the water because that damn music would start going and it was telling you that there was going to be an attack. But that's not exactly true. It just told you there was a potential of an attack. See, anxiety identifies potential in the future between 1 and 99% truth. If it was 100% truth, you wouldn't have anxiety. You would have readiness. Anxiety is about the what if. So that music starts playing in our head. It doesn't always say it's going to happen. Because in a good horror movie, if you ever watched it without the soundtrack, you'd laugh. The noise heightens the intensity and the potential and the what if. And all of a sudden, boom, something happens. The next time that same music plays, nothing happens. That's what anxiety is. All it needs to do is get it right one time and it'll never go away. So when we worry about what people think about us, we worry about how we're going to play, it's adaptive. It raises our energy up to get us ready. And there's a difference between pre-performance anxiety and general anxiety. I'm always nervous, but I found ways to manage it. And I talk about that in Kick Anxiety's Ass. It's coming. But let's talk a little bit about we've got the graphic up about the different stages, right?
Yeah, the PDF you're talking about?
Or let's pull that up right now, okay?
This one?
What I want you guys to understand, and then after this, the one that we talked about today about adaptation and awareness and all that. Yep. You have that one?
Got it. Mm-hmm. You want me to go to that now?
Nope. I want to go to this one. So here's the difference. I want you guys to understand. Let's talk about anxiety in a global perspective, okay? If you didn't get nervous, anxious, energetic before you competed, are you really ready? If you've ever gone into a competition and felt like, man, I'm jamming, it's easy, I got it, you're going to get crushed. Because you have to have a certain amount of anxiety or arousal to be successful. It's one of the oldest Psych 101 graphs. It's called the Yerkes-Dodson law, which means there's an optimum place of arousal for every single person. You probably like to feel a certain way before you competed. I did too. If you were truly calm and relaxed and sleeping, it would go away. Okay. So being aware of what you feel and having to get in that window is important. But what we have about anxiety is, I want you to understand this about anxiety. Because our brain is always scanning the environment and looking to identify something, the problem is it's running below our conscious awareness. And our mind picks up on stuff and it generates a feeling. You said it very clearly. Sometimes I just feel it, but I don't know why. What happens is the body feels that arousal and it feels off. Because if you'd won $1 million, you'd be like, yes, you could understand and place that adrenaline. It was that after hitting a home run, you could feel that adrenaline and you could place it. But when you can't place it, it's more apt to think something might be wrong here versus, yeah, I got this. Totally good. Because you'll be shocked. You'll miss it. So the brain uses anxiety and awareness and what if to prepare you for what it doesn't know. And all of a sudden, boom. Okay. And now here's the build. Because it has the physical awareness, it goes back and starts scanning the environment again. And when it can't find a hook that calms it, solves it, fixes it, you know what it does? It goes, well, it could be this. Well, that could be is always in the future. And here's what I want you guys to know. This is where anxiety gets us. When you can't resolve it, it just starts digging in deeper. So think about it like this. Okay, panic attacks. Okay, panic, sudden surge of anxiety, boom, it gets you. That sudden sense of anxiety is like a window sensor going off in the middle of the night. And your alarm is going, whoa, whoa. And you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, whoa, what just happened? Something's up. And I got to respond. I got to get up. I got to act, right? Because my alarm is off. There's an intruder, right? Isn't that what you'd think? There's an intruder? Absolutely. Mind is saying there is a absolute intruder. It's not what it's actually saying. What it's saying is the window sensor is off. And we're connecting the dot that there's an intruder. Why? Because it's safer for us to prepare for an intruder than to go, oh, yeah, it's just a window, and it really be an intruder. That's a mistake you don't recover from. Okay? So what it does is it will make the assumption that there's an intruder, raise your heart rate up, raise your arousal level up, get you fighting and priming for it, and then as a result, you have to be right. Well, if you're living in an environment where there's been break-ins in your neighborhood or you have a past history, that system is much faster to get to it. Okay? So what happens is we misinterpret stuff. Now, let's think about it like this. We had a sudden event in the middle of the night. But what happens if 4 days later, 4 weeks later, 4 months later, everywhere we go, we're just a little suspicious of people. And somebody looks at us wrong, we think that could be an intruder. That could be the person. And now that generalized effect is there because our body's always amping up. That's how anxiety works. That's how what you and me have, Bash. I mean, that's in all honesty. We're always on the high alert. We're always scanning our environment like our radar system. And our job is to understand that sometimes our radar system is telling us there's a lot of thunderstorms out there. And there's a lot of lightning and we got to be careful. Doesn't mean you're going to get rained on. Doesn't mean you're going to get struck by lightning. It just means there's a high potential for threat. And sometimes our radar has got a 0% chance of rain and there's nothing on the horizon. But does our radar stop in those days? Does it truly relax? Even though every forecast says it should be easy. Nope, because all it takes is one time for us to have missed the thunderstorm that day, and now our radar will never stop. That's how anxiety works. Well, then you look at it and you're like, that's how the brain is interpreting things, right? Well, then it goes to the body. See, anxiety is the ultimate mind and body experience. It ramps up the body, that thing we've called the fight or flight system of our body and the sympathetic nervous system. It hypes us up and amps us up, which we love because it's adrenaline. We love it when we're playing in a game. We love it when we're in a big event. And all of a sudden we're playing really good because we're locked in because we have adrenaline. But that's when there's a very clear goal out there. So the only way to understand that surge of adrenaline is to put ourselves in that experience a lot. But the issue about anxiety is anxiety doesn't want you there. Anxiety wants you out of there. And it tells you to escape, to avoid, to never let this happen. And it starts telling the story about why it's bad to get out of there. Okay? So, in order to treat performance anxiety, the fear of being judged, making a mistake, the way to deal with it is we're going to go to the next thing, the slides. You got those slides? Mm-hmm. Thoughts of oversimplifying? We'll come back to that. You have that other slide there, Bash?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to pull this up on the fly. Okay, so I love that. Look at that. God, you're good. That's some sexy stuff right there, Bash. Okay, so
I'm aware.
You're aware. Ooh, love that confidence. Okay. All right, so the first thing we have to understand in all levels of anxiety is to accept it as what's happening without judgment. Whoa! Let me ask you this, Bash. How often when you feel what you're feeling, are you judging and assessing things? How often are you judging what's wrong, the potential is wrong, or why do I feel this way?
Constantly.
All the time?
Yeah, it's like never goes away. I think that
never.
I think the judging is leads to more anxiety because why am I judging?
Well, remember, okay, so think about that. When we're judging, we're seeing what we're feeling. We're trying to place it. We feel like it's off, and now we start judging, which adds more volume, more energy to find more of a problem, right? And now I've always said, if you want to mess with me, send me a text message that said, hey, can we chat?
Same.
In my mind, same. Okay. One of my top players sent me a message the other day and said, hey, leaving to go overseas, talk in a day or two. And my first thought was, oh, crap, what did I do to screw up? No, he's doing exactly what I asked him to do. When you go overseas, call me. Let's get a plan. Let's talk. I'm pumped. That's my head. Okay. I've got to accept, and this is the biggest thing that I've had to work on, is I have to accept that what I am and who I am is okay. Okay. What I am and what I feel, the anxiety and the arousal that I experience in my head doesn't mean it's wrong. In fact, I want to start accepting it as who I am. What you think other people are not experiencing because you're experiencing anxiety, you think other people are calm. You think other people have it together. You think other people have no problems, no stresses, anything like that, because you can't read other people's thought bubbles. So we judge our experience as novel, unique, and more painful than others, when in reality it's very similar. You've got to learn to accept it, why it's there, what's here. It's okay. I'm in an uncomfortable environment. Why? Uncomfortable can just be new. Uncomfortable could just be novel. Uncomfortable could be I'm just away from my normal routines. Uncomfortable could be I have a stressful job. Uncomfortable could be I care what other people think. Because if you truly don't care what other people think, I'm going to call you a sociopath. So that's not who you is, right? You are somebody who cares what people think. You care about doing a good product. You care about playing well. You got to learn to accept that whatever happens in your life, you can deal with. Whatever people think, you can adapt to. Because what we have to do is after acceptance, we have to go to our second step, which is we have to find our grounding. How often have we heard the concept or the thought, be where your feet are? It's an old Buddhist talk that has a nice rhyme to it that people can hold on to. But be where your feet are. If anxiety is about running out to the future and evaluating all the risks that's out there, if we can stay anchored where we are and just go, here I am. I'm in the middle of a fairway with a shot to hit. Here I am. I'm on deck, getting ready to go hit. Here I am versus looking outside our points of control. Because if you think about it like concentric circles, this circle right here is us. The next level is the people we care about. The next people are the fans. The next people that we start living in these outer circles and ignoring the pure circle. At the end of the day, you are the creator of what you do. And while it may not be easy, may not be fun, it may not be simple, you still have that power by being anchored where you are. And the best way to be anchored is to do something physical. Like that, like pull on your mic. Okay. But it's be anchored. So what I tell some players to do is like pull on their hat, pull on their golf. If you see pitchers, they'll do things like they'll look at the ground, then they'll look back up. Hitters will look at their bat or squeeze the bat. I have a quarterback in the NFL that we work with that uses his towel or he'll pull on his face mask when the play is called, that anchors him into where he is. In other words, no matter where my head is, no matter what I'm feeling, I can always pull back to right here. Use an anchor. Those of you, I know there's some PGA players that are on my stream right now. I've seen them pop up, and some players. Hey, find a way to be like, where's my feet? What's this shot I'm hitting right now? It's a 7-iron from 180. What's the shot I want to hit? What am I trying to do? Like, it doesn't matter what people think, because where do we want to spend our control? For us to go to the third step, which is to create action, the action step, the powerful step, is that where and how much energy that you have from that arousal do you want to direct to things that you can influence versus chasing things you can't have any control of? If this cup was full of energy, how much do we want to spend on things that we can't guarantee or return on? You ultimately have to be selfish as an athlete. You have to take the control back. Instead of those circles, focus on the circle in front of us right here, right now. What matters? Because the reason I want you to be selfish, and you're going to go, wait a minute, I've heard that's wrong. No, I don't want you to be self-centered, which is at the expense of another human being. I want you to be selfish, which is I am the master and creator of what I create. I own that right. I'm going to focus all of my energies on my point and understanding that those circles will only be fulfilled by me taking control of my stuff. When you start chasing things out of your control, it's trying to make somebody else happy that you can't do. You'll only truly be happy by serving the game in front of you, the opportunities in front of you. Now you say, well, what about us? Here we are. We're serving our clients. We're working together. We're doing things like that, right? Don't we want them to be happy with our product? And here's the thing. Bash, I'll give you an example, okay? If you come to me and you say, I've created something that I think you're going to like, it's probably got a less chance than I put my heart and soul into something and I created something. I'd rather your best work versus what I think I want. Now, sometimes I say I want this or whatever, but you still have a really good way of creating what you need. Same with me. A couple of years ago, I was getting nervous before I was going out on tour. I'm always getting amped up, right? Because I have to be at my best. It's a vulnerable place. And I sat back and I said, just give them everything you have. If it's good enough, then that's all you can ask for. If it's not, guess what? They may come to you and say, you got to be better. That's happened. They may say, you know what? I don't want you anymore on my team. That's happened. And you know what I've done? Number 4 is I've adapted. I've retooled. I've learned from each and every experience that I've been in. And I've learned to be flexible in the way I think. And it's still hard to me. Sometimes I have to oversimplify what I'm doing. I got to go back to simple. I got to make it as simple as possible because I got a lot of energy, but I adapt to the moment. Because in order to be successful, we actually need to reduce things that are distracting us. We got to go from the outer circles and bring it back to the inner circles. We got to focus on what is the most important thing. I got to give you everything I have. I will adapt and adjust and refine and improve, and I'll recycle and do it again, because the last section of anxiety is we have to learn to analyze freely. Ooh, big word there, freely. Okay. The reason for that is that anxiety changes the view and the lens by which we see things. We become more critical. We become harsher to ourselves. And most importantly, we don't give ourselves any grace. See, analysis is when we're struggling, what am I doing well? And if I'm doing great, what can I do better? You know, there's a former LSU baseball player by the name of Jake Fraley who had a very nice talk gave an interview. He's going to come on a episode of Mental Game Live. Talked about how he didn't even want to play the game anymore because he was so hypercritical of himself. He never gave himself the opportunity to compete and grow. And by changing his mindset, working with a colleague of ours, changing his mindset to see things differently, he started to see growth. Okay. This game is hard. Whatever you do is hard. Coaching. Do you have parents that are on your back? Do you have administrators judging every move you make? Or are you serving each person on that team, giving them everything that you have, trying to connect to them? As a coach, as a player, are you going out there and playing as hard as you can, giving it everything you have, working? That's all we can control. Let's take that energy and learn to accept who we are, anchoring in the truth of who we are, what we are, be where our feet are, finding the action and the clarity and simplifying that step in that process to be successful. adapting to ever-changing demands, and then analyzing at the end. The only way through anxiety is to face it and to walk through it. I hope it helps you. It ever going to change us. Those of us that are wishing for anxiety to go away, it's like trying to get rid of the freckles on our face. It's who we are. And what we have to do is understand that anxiety actually makes us better. If we can learn and take it and turn it to realizing that it makes us connected to people, it makes us give our best effort, and that true freedom is not the absence of anxiety. True freedom is when we accept how to use anxiety to create our best outcomes. Bash, I've had anxiety since I was 12 years old, 6 years old, 17 years old, whatever it is. I can remember going to school every morning worried about what today would hold. Worried, am I going to have a good day or a bad day? Versus starting to look at the fact of, you know what? I'll accept what today is and I'll adapt. That was a big change for me. Do I still have anxiety? Damn straight I do. But can I face it every day? Does that make sense? Does this make sense to our listeners out there? Little diatribe. Just drives me nuts when I see us villainize the fact of anxiety like it's some failure in us. Drives me freaking nuts. Come on. Most of the people who write about that don't have it, or they've never treated people with it. That's
I think it's really hard for, because I've had a number of people like genuinely want to know like what I'm feeling, or because I think they want to help. They just can't understand. Like,
what do your RPMs run at on a scale of 1 to 100? What does your general RPM run at?
If you're looking at a car, probably like I'm in the red, probably like 8,000. Only the thing about it, like, yeah, all the time. The thing about it is like I only get, people are like, so when do you feel? The only time I get relief is when I'm asleep. Like when I'm and people are like at times when I'm not feeling my best, or I'm really having a hard time keeping it under control, I look forward to sleeping because that's the only time that I get relief from it.
It's an escape.
That's the only time I can get relief from it.
Okay. I'm going to challenge you in the next week. I want you, instead of trying to suppress that anxiety, I want you to turn towards it. And I want you to start listening to what it tells you. And I want you in a week to tell me what it did. You may have a little bit more anxiety at start, but watch over time. It's like that annoying person that sits next to you at a restaurant. It'll drown out by the time you look at it. The more you try to ignore them, the louder they get. See, that's acceptance, anchoring, and action right there. Trust me on that.
Okay.
Try it.
Give it a shot.
Give it a shot. You can tell me
give it a shot.
Stupid idea. You can tell me stupid idea.
Stupid. It's not going to fucking work.
It's funny, right? When and I talk about a kick anxiety's ass, not to steal it, but when I first started having panic attacks, when I was in grad school, I had fear of vomiting in public, particularly on airplanes or in settings I couldn't get out. In grad school, I used to have 3-hour classes. And so I would sit by the door and I'd carry a big cup because my idea was if I ever got sick, I could like try to throw something in my mouth real quick. But I wouldn't want to eat in public. So I would go to the local McDonald's on campus. That was like big food. And I would order food and I would sit at the chair right by the door and I would eat and I would try to time myself how long I could stay before I felt like I had to escape. And it took me a couple of weeks, but I started getting to a point where I could sit there for a long time. Now I wouldn't like overstuff myself, but I speak to anxiety as somebody who has it. I speak to somebody who's had the throes of it. I speak to somebody who's had the desire to escape as hard as possible. And so when I bring this up, I'm not saying this from a judgment standpoint, but you can compete with it. You can play great with it. You can live great with it. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Okay. But you can actually function at a high level because it's what makes and brings our psychological fingerprints out. And it makes us unique. Okay. So I want to destigmatize. I want to de-villainize anxiety. Not to make me feel better because I still work on it every day. It's funny is one of the things that I realize is that Going for a morning walk helps me get in a slot. It's like a dog. I got to burn off some energy. So athletes who have a lot of energy going into games, sometimes get up and move, burn that energy. Okay, find a way to burn it off, and you'll play better. So let's get some Q&A.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break.
Let's do it.
Promote all of our great products.
We do. All right, let's take. Hey, if you're listening to me on Instagram and you want to get it. All right, so let's get some Q&A.
All right, dude, we got Pat. We got some really good questions, so I hope you're ready.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's go to Darren and on YouTube. How do I create a more consistent ball striking routine or mental adjustment during my round? For example, I'll play one hole, tee to green, no issue. Next hole, keep mishitting the ball.
Okay, that's a great question. So it's funny, right? There are certain holes that fit our eye. There's certain holes that we just like the way we feel. We hit the ball well and it comes off good. And there's also times that subconsciously underneath the surface, you ever understood from course designers, and one of these days I'm going to have a course designer. I've got one in mind that's going to come on the show and talk about the subtleties of course design that create discomfort, right? And there's simple things like moving of a tee box and angling them in different ways, okay? And the reason for that is that it just creates a little bit. All it sometimes takes is just a little bit of tension, a little bit of angst, a little bit of energy to get us out of our rhythm. All right, so if you want a really good pre-shot routine, and I'm not big on it has to be a certain way, but I will tell you this: don't be in a hurry to F up. And what I mean by that is don't be in a hurry through your pre-shot routine. Take a step back, look at the ground, take a deep breath. I don't like people to look down the fairway because I feel like that creates more tension. Just look at the ground. Take a deep breath and go back to that's acceptance and go back to that physical anchor. Pull it in and be like, all right, here we go. And add the physical with a command like, all right, here we go. Lock in, let's compete. Okay. And if you miss-hit, we move on to the next one. We don't have to string them together and tell the whole story. The biggest problem with anxiety is we're always trying to predict the future by past events. So what we're doing is we're taking the fact, I'm not hitting it good on this hole. We've already answered the whole question. Slow it back down and say, I want to be present with this one shot, all that matters. And here's a simple cue that I even give my tour players. If I'm in the middle of the fairway and Doc dropped a ball and said, hit this shot, how would I approach it? Don't bridge everything with it. You're out there competing and putting different shots together, and we'll get started that way. There you
go. Wendy, YouTube. My biggest anxiety is when I am traveling alone and I get to my destination and have no idea what to do with myself. Generates a ton of anxiety and panic attacks. This holds me back so much.
I agree, Wendy. So I'm leaving to go overseas on Saturday, right? And I scheduled it with one of my coaching colleagues that's staying with me on the road with one of our players. And I even texted him today and said, where are we going when we land? Okay, where are we going? He goes, don't worry, there's a car to pick us up. Our player arranged for a car to pick us up. That relieved so much anxiety in me. Last year when I went to St. Andrews for the British Open, the Open Championship.
Whoa.
I know, big one. I can't say the British word. The Open Championship. I was lucky enough to run into a former client of mine and young man who was playing for University of St. Andrews. And I said, hey, I ran into him in the Paris airport. I said, hey, what's up? I said, I got a deal for you. I will give you a ride on my shuttle if you will take me to my condo, which St. Andrews is so small. He was like, yeah, it's right next door to me. So I just all of a sudden relaxed. But I heard this analogy many, many years ago, and I never forgot it. A player said, when you go to an airport you don't know, and you don't know where the rental car is, and you don't know where your hotel is, and that anxiety of driving through late at night after a long day and all that surge, that's what it feels like to play every single day in front of a coach that's judging you. Mic drop. Wendy, what you're experiencing is normal. So let's develop a better strategy. So let me tell you how I develop it. I research the airport ahead of time. I find out where the rental car is. Is it a shuttle? Is it like LaGuardia Airport where you have to take 2 stupid shuttles? Hate that place. Where's my hotel? Where's parking? Biggest stress I have is going to tournaments that I don't know on the PGA Tour, usually majors. I don't know where to park. I don't know where to go. I don't know where the Uber is. This time for the LACC, I stayed 6 miles away. Thought it was a great idea. It was an hour commute every day. The shuttle didn't run like they said it would. I had to take an Uber every single day at $80 a piece there and back. Okay, creates tremendous anxiety. Where's the best places to eat? What you have to understand is because you're in uncertainty, your arousal level is amping. Be careful of what threats your brain is taking you. Okay? You can't do that. You have to understand, realize that we're heightened. Let's simplify our process. Where am I going? How am I getting there? And sometimes that's okay. Biggest stress I have is getting to a place and getting my credential, knowing where to park. Okay? There you
go. Dawson says, would you say that when a player is anxious over a shot, the best solution is making sure the player makes a fully committed swing?
I would say that before they even hit the shot. I would start that in my pre-shot routine, and understanding my funnel of focus that we teach here through the Mind Side is that funnel of focus is going to funnel that energy in, because if we're over the ball and we're trying to prevent it, what's going to happen is that prevention is going to kind of start running a script in our head. So I'd rather you take a step back and be like, this is a stressful shot, acceptance, anchor, I'm right here, right now. What's the action that I want to take? What's the action? I want to hit this shot to that target. Clear visualization, and then we want to execute. And then we analyze it and move on. And one of the things I've done for certain players who have a lot of anxiety is I actually have them write down the shot before they hit it, to write it down in their course book. Slows them down and brings that process together. That's a little hint.
This one is kind of an anonymous one. I'm a 13-year-old competitive cross-country and track runner, and even days before I run, I get performance anxiety to the point where I cry, and I'm miserable all the time. How can I get help?
So I just watched Shane Lawler in the UFC fight his last fight, and he said he loves to train, but he hates training for a fight because he hates the vulnerability that it brings. So he's chosen at 41 now to be done. Okay. That vulnerability, that increased emotion that goes with it is about us being judged, being evaluated. And you may just be evaluating yourself in your training. And yourself in your training might be just in that point. So here's what I want you to do. Okay? Ready? As you're leading into it, I want you to write down one physical cue that you're going to focus on. One mental cue that you're going to anchor into, and one attitude. So as you're leading in, you can chart this race. I've done my training. Here's all the training I've done. So my physical cue is I want to get off to a fast start and I want to get out ahead of people. I can control that even if I'm not comfortable. What's my mental key? I'm prepared and I'm ready. And then what's my attitudinal one is that I can accept whatever outcomes my way. And if you declare that leading in, that'll give your mind some structure and concrete. The reason your mind is racing is because it doesn't have something concrete to hold on to. Something we talk about in Kick Anxiety's Ass.
Greg on YouTube says, I'm aware of my anxiety and uncomfort in tournaments, but instead of trying to maybe suppress, it says oppress, but of trying to suppress, how do we accept it and continue to perform?
Has your anxiety ever helped you? Has that adrenaline ever helped you? Probably. Okay. So let's have a warm up that separates evaluation from warming up. And I would probably look at it to know that you're amped up, is I would look at some things to maybe try to burn off some energy earlier, whether it's, going to something that's comfortable, getting an exercise in, going for a walk in the morning, something that can work your anxiety through. Okay. And so we need to embrace it, because that anxiety is adrenaline, and that adrenaline helps you hit the ball cleanly and all that, but you have to understand how it impacts you. So from a golfer standpoint, do you make the same turn you normally do? Does your transition get fast? These are all personal invitations to study you. So stress, anxiety, pressure, how does it impact you physically? How does it impact how you think? How does it impact your decisions and your processes? And how does it impact your grittiness? That is something that you, Greg, have to study in yourself. So instead of judging it and trying to suppress it and push it back, why don't you start saying, for the next 3 tournaments, I want to bring in as much anxiety as I can. I want to invite it in. I want to be aware of it, and I want to jot it down in the notes of what I feel, instead of saying, ooh, that's wrong that I feel it amped up. Ooh, that's wrong that I feel like I can't breathe. How about we look at it as like, okay, now I know I'm alive and ready to compete. Turn the course on that, and you'll be better off.
Jason says, can having a great routine help with the anxiety on the course? Like when you told Frankie to have a good process.
Yeah. So the reason for that we use a routine is that's the anchoring process. That's the thing that brings you present to where you are, that is still under your control. Because I've yet to really find a player who is very conscious to where they are, abandon their process, and not be successful. So we use a routine to say, what? This is normal. Not it's a dance routine. Don't think about it like that. Think about it like this is normal. I'm in the process right here. So if I do this, I'm okay. So if you watch pitchers or hitters or basketball players go to the free throw line, even football players, they run their pre-shot, their pre-snap reads. They're going through their structure. Why? No matter where you are, what you're doing, I can always control that effort right there.
Nathaniel says, what do you do if your radar has been on high alert for the past year, but there's been no storms so far, but the radar still won't clear?
Welcome to my life, Nathaniel. I hate to say that.
Indeed.
Okay. All right. So how about we look at it like this? How about we look at that your radar is very active, it's very aware, and we have to do a really good job of investigating what is risk and what is not. Okay. And what I mean by that is that our risk, that heightened awareness, is just very active. So we have to be clear and choose what our decision is and our action, and see if we can get it to 100% certainty and commitment. More than likely, that very active radar stealing energy from certain areas, and you're never getting that level of intention.
Dawson says, what are your thoughts on oversimplifying to reduce anxiety?
Well, anxiety creates a lot of choice. We tend to amp up and start evaluating more things, and simplification is critical. Okay. So I like players to verbalize shots, even baseball, softball, basketball, it doesn't matter. Say it out loud, because it's hard to have 4 thoughts in your head and also speak it out. That's a great simplification technique.
Jason says, can golfers have too much information before they hit a shot?
10,000% yes. And so you see it in tournaments. That's why players start, getting more stressed into tournaments versus regular days. In tournaments, that they're focused more on, trying to be so perfect. They take in too much information. One of the common ones I see is working with their professional caddies. It's like you got 182 to a pin and 163 cover. It's like they would never miss that much. When they play alone, they shoot the target, they identify a shot, and they hit it. We want to simplify our processes.
Let's go to Dawson. Again, Dawson's got some great questions. Keep them coming, Dawson. How do expectations affect anxiety?
So expectations, true expectations, and great expectation, high expectations tend to advance us. They're usually built on some fear and doubt and hope, because if we expect to play well because of something we've done in the past, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay. And I think the beauty of expectations is that we believe, but when expectations become a problem is they start trying to predict the future. If you truly believe in yourself to face any challenge before me, you would expect nothing. So when you find yourself with expectations, ask yourself, am I getting ahead or am I in the present? Let's get back to the present moment and say, I don't know how it's going to go, but I know how I'm going to respond to every challenge, and get back into that. Let's do one more good one.
Let's go to Scott. Can a golfer with ADHD be successful?
1,000% yes. 1,000%. Attention deficit disorder is not the fact that you can't pay attention. It's the fact that you get distracted by too many, thunderstorms out there, worries out there, things that are cool, shiny objects. But ADHD often comes with a lot of creativity. So what we have to do is simplify the process and not make it a 27-step approach. So we have to keep it simple. We have to make sure we hydrate, make sure we eat right, and make sure we stay focused and use triggers that bring us back to the moment. 1,000% ADHD. What was the question? No, I was kidding. I've managed attentional issues my entire life, Scott.
Nice.
I write with headphones in my ears. Normally I'd have a TV on over our shoulder, but I don't right now because you probably see the reflection. I have to bounce off of things. That's why I write. I can't write in a quiet room. I can't write in my office. I go away. I go to a coffee shop. I've been in a coffee shop all day today. Probably on 7 coffees. All right. I am leaving.
A question?
You got a question? All right.
Is there a point of when you were playing? Is there a point of the whole game day process of a baseball game that you, with anxiety, did not particularly like?
Pre-game.
Hated it.
Hated it.
So I was hoping you were going to say.
That's why I hated starting. Because like our cross-country runner, for 2 and 3 days, I would worry. And I would play the entire game out in my head. And what I had done when I was a reliever is I realized that I never knew when I was going in. I didn't care how long I had to throw. All I had to do was get after each hitter I faced one time, and then I got to go to a next one. I wish I could go back now and get back to it. But there was a very prominent pitcher that just got done pitching, not our guest, but another one, that we came up with an idea that was just have bad intentions for every hitter. And after every hitter, he'd step off the mound and ask himself, do I have good or bad intentions for this hitter? I got the baddest intentions possible. And so pregame for me sucked because I was you got to remember why. Our mind, it's like race cars revving the engines, but there's nowhere to go. That's pregame anxiety, y'all. That's all it is. But the mind sees it as what if. Why? Uncertainty is the greatest threat we have. I don't know how the game is going to go. I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know what people are going to think about me. So it tries to take that energy and it will latch on to something it does not even be able to control. That's why it's not a lie. It's not a false. It's not a failure. It's not a lack of faith. It's just trying to put the energy somewhere. There you go.
Love it.
All right, I'm going over the pond on Saturday. We won't have a middle game live next week, but we'll be back at the end of the month on the 31st. I think it's 7 p.m. Central Time. Monday night, I'll do my best to have a great guest. Maybe we can get an Open champion, the champion golfer of the year. We'll go from there.
Perfect.
Y'all have a great night.
Safe travels.
Thank you again for joining. Great conversation.